Hey guys, Philosopher here, and I am here with one of the biggest people that have influenced me to get to where I am right now. This is Gootecks, competitive player, author, entrepreneur, like triple threat, in my opinion. I think that he has a lot of information to offer, so hopefully you guys will be able to learn a lot from this. But the first question, before doing cross counter and writing books, you were a competitive player. Like, how did you get started in the FGC?
I got started in FGC maybe in 2003. I was going to school at Cal Poly Pomona and was playing, CBS2, Third Strike, casually with friends in the dorms. But we had a really cool arcade, and so we were playing. And then I was, trying to get good. I knew there was a tournament scene, but I wasn't like involved. And then I was there for summer school, and my friend that I would play with messaged me one day. He's like, "Hey, there's like this really big tournament at school. You should go check it out." Turns out it was Evo 2003. So I walked in, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" I was like, "This is home." I felt like I'd found my people, and so I made like one friend that year because it was like this dude Simon from Nebraska, and I had a car. I was local to the area. Took him to get some boba because they didn't have that in
Oh,
Nebraska.
yeah, that's good
and
stuff.
then we kept in touch, and I kept playing locally. And then the next year, Evo 2004 came around, and then they were like, "Hey, he had the whole crew." I picked up the whole Nebraska crew from the airport, and they were like, "Oh, there's this really big Third Strike tournament at this place called Family Fun Arcade," which I'd heard of but never been to. So I was like, "All right, let's go." Walked in, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible." I didn't even know that this thing existed because Family Fun Arcade reminded me a lot of my home arcade that I would play fighting games at as a kid. It was just like mostly a fighting game arcade. And so I just started to go pretty much every weekend, which was like, I don't know, it was like an hour 15. I don't know. It was a long drive. But I would go, and at the time, the FFA guys were just starting to put out tournament videos, which was, this was 2005, 2006 ish. So essentially a pre-YouTube era, So these videos would get uploaded to like an FTP, how many people were watching or downloading or whatever. But because I had a background in audio engineering, I used to record shitty metal bands back then in college. And so I knew a thing or two about audio, and they didn't know anything about audio. So I was able to, even though I wasn't the strongest player, I was just like super like middle, mid tier. Like I was okay, but I was able to build relationships with these guys because I was willing to help with the production on the audio side, and then that sort of led to me editing the whole video. So even though I was well versed in audio, I didn't know anything about video, but I was able to use the same software to edit these early FFA Third Strike ranking battle videos. So through being involved like that and helping and then just going consistently, I got better over time and practice.
Through exposure and just being around them and
Yeah,
practice.
because like even though we would play, whenever you get there like 9, 10 o'clock at night, the place would close at like 3 or 4, and then we would go across the street to Denny's and then sit there for another like 2 hours and like talk about the game, and like that was where I was probably where I learned the most because there were a lot of there were a few guys in the scene like dudes like Arlith and Ken I that like knew so much about the technical side of the game that I didn't know. So it was really helpful to have built those relationships through just being willing to help and take like an existing skill set, audio engineering, parlay that into helping with these videos, and then learning how to edit video, and then producing the Ask Doctor Sub Zero podcast. And yeah, it kind of just went from there.
Video editing and learning all these skills. Like, why bother doing that?
Well, when I was in college, I had this silly idea that I wanted to like own a record label, but having no I mean, I played piano when I was a kid, but I had essentially no musical talent, no connections, nothing. So I was just like, well, and no money or anything. So I was just like, well, I better learn how to do all this stuff myself. In terms of like video, it was kind of like the guy who was I would help with the audio during the tournaments, but then the guy who was editing the videos normally, Shogo, I don't know, he got busy with something some week, so I just was like, oh, okay, well, I can just edit this one this week. And then it just, it went from editing to then like making these like intro videos set to music and all this stuff. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was a lot of work, but yeah, it was definitely like good learning experience because even though I don't edit videos now, I still can totally talk with editors and know shit about like, bit rates and formats and rendering, all this stuff. So it was really just like being in a position where I was already helping and then taking on like a little bit more responsibility. Even though there was obviously there's no money involved, despite our best efforts to try to monetize, video like fighting game videos in like 2005, 2006.
Yeah. Okay, so when did this transition happen between playing and making videos to actually teaching people how to play the game?
Well, the thing is, like, once I started to do, at some point I decided to just launch a website, Gootecks.com, and this was kind of like maybe 2007, 2008, and I'd kind of made the decision. I had like this like quarter life crisis, fucking broke up with a long-term girlfriend, and was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. The only thing that was really left that I really gave a shit about was Street Fighter. So I was like, well, how can I just try to make a living doing this? Which meant I needed to figure out how to like turn that into like making money. But because I guess I have a background or a lot of experience with like information products, and like I've gone to lots of like seminars like real estate, like making money, like start your own business. I've gone to a lot of that stuff, and I'm very familiar with this sort of business model of like creating information products and selling them. Because even before doing this, I was, at one point I was like making videos to show people how to, it was like, it was something about, I was selling these like videos on eBay, physical discs, on showing people how to do like slightly technical stuff at the time. Stuff like I think it was even like like how to rip a DVD, and or how to like take like a vinyl record and like digitize it, like shit like that. Which sounds silly now, but like 12, 15 years ago was, there was a need for that type of stuff. So I had already been like kind of like making and selling information products, and I always felt like there was a really big like a missed opportunity to create some of this content and products around fighting games, because I'd seen it work so well in other industries. Like, what's the difference between like buying like a package that shows you how to get started in real estate investing and buying a package that shows you how to get better at Street Fighter. The only difference is the subject matter, but the delivery, the way that you can sell is the same thing. So I've studied, I've studied dudes like Dan Kennedy, who's like fucking direct marketing god, and educated myself on how these guys have been selling and making money throughout the ages, and then we just try to apply that to fighting games. So in the early days, it was like, okay, well, have the website, and because Street Fighter 4 was like brand new, I would spend all my time, like I would wake up, go to Super Arcade, and then take a break, and then basically like write blog posts on what I learned or whatever. And at some point came across this, like the idea of a lead generation magnet, which at the time was, it might have been from Dan Kennedy. I don't know where I got that. It certainly wasn't mine though. I'd seen somebody else. I'd seen plenty of other people do it. So I was like, okay, well, I need an ebook. So let me just write a small ebook. It was called the Third Strike Player's Guide to Street Fighter 4 because this was when Street Fighter 4 was out in the arcade, but it wasn't going to come out on console for another like 9 months. So I was blessed to be in SoCal and had access to all the Street Fighter 4 machines. So I was able to get the jump on everybody else, put together this, I don't know, it's like 30 pages ebook, and then trade it for, just put it up for free in exchange for email addresses, and then be able to send traffic to whatever I wanted, whether it was like a new podcast or an event that I was going to, or selling Mad Cat sticks within an affiliate link, like that. All that stuff was super useful at the time. And I don't know, that was kind of how it started, because like my focus was always like when I was a kid, I was buying like GamePro magazines, and I would buy the strategy guides because I was like trying to get better. I mean, I was like 10 or 11 years old. So it's like, now being older, even though this was a long time ago, I was like, well, maybe I can make the type of resources that I wish that I would have had, and I have the access because at the time I was a top player, so it's like I know everybody, and people, like almost everybody was always down to either be on the podcast and talk about how they think about the game, or would be down to do like more premium stuff, like for example, I did a product with Ed Ma called Street Fighter 4 Secrets, and then one with Arturo Sanchez, Street Fighter 4 Secrets 2, and then did one with Filipino Champ, Fighting Game Mastery, and it's like, it's all, none of those products actually required any gameplay. It was just audio. And at the time, like it was way easier to just put together this product and sell it on iTunes or sell digital downloads than it was to like make like tutorial or training videos, which is a whole other thing that didn't quite work out because of not having permission or the license from Capcom. But yeah, because to me the thing is, like, educational, training, information products are like no gimmick, super like consistent ways to like share information, help people get better, and make money. And it's all digital, so once it's up, you just
passive income.
Passive income. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you've been finding ways to monetize yourself and studying it, more importantly, for a long time then.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've studied so much of, I don't know. I mean, not as much anymore, but back then, like studying, internet marketing, SEO. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I'm like, I'm well versed in like SEO, pay per click, fucking affiliate marketing. Like I feel like I've done every single type of content and monetized every single possible way that there is. I'm sure there's a few that I've missed, but I know I covered like most of the big. I know I've covered almost all the bases.
Okay. So that kind of leads me into the next topic, which is this debate between esports versus grassroots and people's perceptions of basically monetizing yourself within the FGC. And first, I want to know, what your thought process is with observing the hesitation that a lot of people have.
Hesitation of like what going full esports.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when you like some band because their music speaks to you, and also nobody knows about them because they're like not mainstream, they're not on the radio, so you feel like, oh, like this is like my band, right? But then if they're good and successful and consistent, then what happens is they become popular, and then some of the fan base is like, sweet, great, and the other part of the fan base is like, oh, these fucking sellouts. So, and some bands, like, they'll change their sound to become mainstream. Other bands will still be the same band, they're just more famous. So I think in our scene there's this sort of notion that like esports is bad, you're a fucking sellout, but the reality is that it's just your perception, because it's, on one hand, one school of thought is it's selling out, the other school of thought is it's cashing in. And I don't think of myself as esports. I don't think of myself as a sellout. I've certainly taken like commentary or hosting gigs for like big fucking companies that paid the bills. I've also done tons of shit for free, and I've also done like campaign, like influencer campaigns and promotions for various products. I mean, does it bother me if like some movie that's coming out had some marketing spend that needed to go onto YouTube? Does that bother me? No. Why? I don't give a shit. Like this money is going to get spent anyways. So if I get an opportunity to catch it, and it doesn't harm me, or it doesn't take away from the viewer's experience, if anything, there have been lots of campaigns that actually cause us to either make something new that we wouldn't have anyways, or put out additional stuff because this campaign was available. So, because we've done lots of campaigns before, it's like, okay, we're going to put out Excellent Adventures on Sunday, then this campaign comes up on a Monday, and we just had something ready to go, and then it's on Tuesday. So now, okay, well, thanks to so-and-so, you get to watch this new episode of Excellent Adventures early, or that you wouldn't have been able to see it all. So, to me, like, I mean, obviously, like, esports, the big thing, I think, is that people in our scene think of esports as, like, oh, this sort of soulless, sanitized, like, thing. And they're not wrong. But, I mean, who cares? I mean, what's the big deal? Like, you can try to hold out. I mean, I'm probably, even telling you all this, I'm probably one of the only holdouts that's like, oh, the jersey thing is lame. Like, the tough esport, that pose like that is, you look like a dork. Like, I think it's super whack. But with that said, when these types of like campaigns or opportunities come down the pipe, I'm not going to say no to that. But I'm also like conscious of the way that I present myself, because I don't believe that the esports jersey and the fucking I don't know, the commentator, the blazer, the eSports blazer. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's not a necessity. I mean, so I think we just need to figure out what works for our scene, and that's why, like for example, with E-League, I'm not. It's been a long time since I really gave a fuck about like being really good at the game. But when I thought about it, obviously, it was a great opportunity. But I looked at, I looked at the lineup, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do the exact opposite? Because I think that I think it's lame. I think the jerseys are ugly and they're lame, and that's why I did the exact opposite. But
And you still stood out.
yeah, of course, it was easy. I mean, because I think of it. Because here's the thing, like. First, the biggest thing right now, the biggest reason why most of the esports model doesn't work is because most of the esports games are team-based. Right now, it's probably going to change very soon. Fighting games are probably going to transition to being team-based. Maybe it'll make more sense. But right now, it's still one-on-one. So there's no value as a player or whatever, or somebody to just put on like the jersey, just put on some jersey of some organization with a bunch of fucking sponsor logos that like you don't personally have like a relationship with. Like if you look at any of these guys that are wearing these jerseys with these big corporate sponsors, like the relationship is not with those with those companies. The relationship is with the team, which is essentially just acting as an agency because it's a one-on-one game. So I think of it more like if it were me, it would be like, okay, how can we present ourselves like more like a soccer team? Because that's also one of the big cultural differences in fighting games versus the other genres. Is like most people we're very diverse economically, socially, ethnically, super diverse, and people generally are more. They're like characters. People are very outspoken. You don't have, in other games, other genres, you have players that aren't necessarily like the ones that are like super, charismatic and people like really connect with. Those are the exception right now, not the norm. But in our scene, it's the norm to be like, to have a person, to be a character.
I talked about this with James Chen, I think last year, and I call it the sheen of WWE because there's a lot of personas or personalities within the FGC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I study the history of pro wrestling to understand where we are currently in fighting games and where we're going.
Actually, that ties right into a question I was going to ask, which is where do you see the FGC going?
So I think right now we're in this sort of transition phase where, like, League of Legends used to be like the king, or Dotas, I don't know. It was like MOBAs were like the most popular, and then because StarCraft kind of like came and kind of died, and now with the rise of PUBG and Fortnite specifically, I think the MOBAs, even though the prize pools are ginormous, but like Fortnite. I mean, even though I hated on the Ninja Drake Fortnite thing, it was still a very important milestone, and one of the major things that sort of popped Fortnite into pop culture, and it's there. So I think that those games, especially now with the $100 million Fortnite prize pool thing, like that shit is going to keep growing. But with that said, in the same way that probably people thought that League of Legends was going to be the most popular game forever, it wasn't, because newsflash, nothing is going to be super popular forever. So, like, maybe MOBAs have peaked. I don't know, but they're certainly, it's not growing at the same rate that Fortnite is, right? So I anticipate that there'll be the same sort of growth. It's going to keep growing. Rising tide raises all ships, but it's going to hit a plateau, and unless another genre comes out of nowhere, because like the battle royale genre kind of didn't. I mean, maybe I'm just ignorant, but I don't think it existed several years ago, or maybe it did to a small extent, but not like it does
In a
now.
different way.
Yeah,
In a different way. Like DayZ, stuff like that, but that wasn't
right.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that unless a new genre comes up out of nowhere, I think it's a pretty sure bet that fighting games will be next to experience this sort of like massive explosion in growth and popularity. But it's still going to be several years away. I think that the all of these big esports investors and the big money that's coming in, at some point they're going to be like, all right, where's the ROI? And they're going to want they're going to want their money back. And if all of these organizations that have accepted this money can't deliver, people are going to pull out, and then the bubble will either burst or deflate, and then people will be the truly dedicated will be like, okay, well, what's next? Oh, fighting games? Oh, yeah, I know Street Fighter. Oh, Dragon Ball. Oh, wow. And it's the natural progression because it's easier. I mean, at least a one-on-one 2D fighting game or one-on-one fighting game in general is just going to be easier to watch than
League of Legends or
League, Overwatch,
Fortnite.
Dota, Fortnite, Counter-Strike, the whole thing. You can get normal people to watch fighting games because it's easier to follow and because people will resonate or not or completely hate like the people that they get to know on stream or whatever.
On TV, on camera.
On camera.
Okay. Yeah. So where do you see yourself in all of this in the trajectory of competitive fighting games?
Well, I mean, I guess over the past 6 or 8 months, I've just been in a funk. So I've not been super active in creating content, especially like doing like videos, being on camera and stuff. But now, I guess I feel better or different, or I don't know, have a slightly different path now. So I see myself creating let's just say I'm working on a tournament series that I think people will get a kick out of. So between that and trying to find more ways to create and deliver value for the scene, I don't know. I just see myself trying to do a better job of providing a platform for fighting game people to either monetize their content or put themselves over or help get better as a player, not necessarily from content I'm creating, but hopefully I'll be able to partner with the right people to create this content, because I have it all. It's like the rabbit hole is so deep in terms of like the content that can be created. It's just I can't do it. It's way too much for me, for even one person to do. So I guess I don't know. I guess I just see myself trying to do more events, I guess, in and around Vegas, because I'm there in Vegas now.
Okay.
Super vague. That's like not a good answer. But
Is there
I don't like to necessarily like say too much about stuff that isn't like super concrete.
Gotcha. Okay. So a question I always ask people: if someone walks up to you and they say, "I want to be where you are," I want, I don't, I'm starting from ground zero, and I want to do what you're doing. What kind of advice would you tell this person?
Well, um, I guess if somebody wanted to be, I guess if somebody wanted to be the next Gootecks, then they should try to figure out how they can create and deliver as much value to as many people as possible. Everybody has like a few like innate talents or gifts or things that they're good at. Um, it's really about finding that thing. And people, I hear this all the time. People are like, oh, I'm not good at anything, or like, oh, I'm not good on camera, or like, oh, I can't write, or like, I suck at the game, or whatever. But usually, all those things might be true, but there still is always something that you bring to the table. It's just a question of whether or not you're willing to put in the work and the consistency required over a long period of time to start to see, the fruits of your labor. Um, you know, Not everybody. You don't need to be on camera. People think that, oh, streaming is like such a big fucking deal right now. Oh, if I want to like, I should go and try to be like Twitch famous or like build an audience like that. But the reality is like, like if that's not what you truly enjoy and what you're truly passionate about, like you're not going to stick with it long enough to see it through. So it's like you got to take like inventory of your skill, of your own personal skill set, and then try to figure out how that can help people. Like, perfect example, maybe like a tech monster, right? Like somebody is like really 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 good at finding setups, or finding the cheap shit in the game, right? And then you're like, but they suck in terms of tournaments, right? So then you're like, okay, well, I have all this knowledge, I'm not good on camera, I know a lot about the game, but I can't perform at a high level. Therefore, I'm fucking useless. That's not true. And I see it so often where people have really good tech and they either post it on Twitter or they post it on YouTube, gets a couple hundred views, and they're just like, oh, fuck, like, why bother? The reality is that somebody like me can take stuff like that and know exactly how to best leverage that to either monetize or to at the very least like build a larger audience, which eventually will lead to being able to monetize. For example, if you had like 10 of these little like setups, like for example Street Fighter 5 you're in, right? Like you had like these 10 like wacky setups that nobody ever seen before. Like that's the type of stuff that our audience on our website, our subscription website, would would be totally into. And the platform that we have supports an unlimited amount of collaborators and contributors, right? So what we can do is we can say, if somebody has this type of tech, all they need is a way to monetize. Well, we just be like, okay, well, we just make you an account on site, you upload the videos to our site, and now you're getting a portion of an appropriate proportion based on the views that's relative to our overall subscription revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But is it um, is it easy? Is it obvious? Is it straightforward? Once you've done it once, fuck yeah, it is. But before you've done it, you're just like, oh, that's too hard, or there'll be these little obstacles that stop you on the way. Oh, I don't know how to edit, or oh, I don't know how to make a thumbnail in Photoshop. Well, it's like it's 2018. Like there's plenty of ways to accomplish these things, and we can use the internet to learn the things that we don't know how to do.
Yep. Google, Fiverr.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just like practice, consistency, and patience, because you're gonna suck at the beginning, and that's usually what stops people. People are like, oh, like I don't know, like, oh, I don't know how to talk on camera, or I don't know how to edit, or whatever. It's like, well, duh. Nobody knows how to do anything until they learn how to do it, until they apply themselves. It's not that hard, but I don't know. People are lazy. I feel like gamers especially are lazy inherently. Inherently, you must be lazy if you are so good at playing games that you beat other people playing games. Like inherently, you must be kind of lazy. So
It's an instant gratification era that we're living in too. I believe you.
yeah, like I mean, you know, it's not going to happen like that in fighting games or esports, and if it did, you probably wouldn't last very long anyways. Like what's the saying? Like overnight successes are like 10 years in the making. You know, it looks like an overnight success, but these people have been grinding forever.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
Yeah, so it's like, how do you pick something? And the thing is, like, you can always change your mind. Oh, you start out editing videos, you're like, okay, well, I kind of know the basics. This fucking blows. Let me try writing an article. Let me try putting together an ebook. Let me try, like, I don't know, doing commentary or whatever. There's so many different paths. I feel like I've tried them all.
Yeah, and that experience doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't go away. In the same way that even though I said enough is enough, I'm not recording any more of these shitty metal bands. Did what I learned about audio go away? No, it directly helped the very next thing, and the very next thing was way easier, way easier than what I was doing before, and that helped. Having that knowledge and experience from, you know, doing audio engineering, I was able to use the same software, Sony Vegas, to start editing videos, and it was the same thing. It wasn't that hard because I had already, I guess I'd already just been committed to like learning. So I guess that's the takeaway. Be committed to learning, not committed to any one method or any one medium or delivery or whatever. Just be committed to investing in yourself.
Okay, I like it. And then last question is just a simple one. You know, if people want to learn more on you, where can they find you? What do they need to check out?
I mean, you can go to the website, crosscounter.tv. You can go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/crosscountertv. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm not,
I'll put it in the description down below.
there's, just look up Gootecks, but just lower your expectations because it's not, like, you know, all the stuff that I've been working on the past, like, couple months, like, you're not gonna see none of that shit on social.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this has been an enlightening conversation. I enjoyed it. Hopefully this wasn't too boring for you. But, you know, I hope you guys learned a lot about this. Yeah, there's... I appreciate it. I love the ramblers. That's the people that I like to find because I think there's a lot of information to get, especially from the entrepreneurial side, which we don't get a lot of. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, man.
Yeah. And I'll see you guys in the next one.